Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Loud Little Ducky. We are back for another live. Welcome if you are new here. Hello, my returning subscribers. Right now, I'm going to leave the chat open for anybody. If something gets out of hand, then I may have to turn it on subscriber mode, but hopefully I don't have to do that. But we are going to talk about this week in the Karmelo Anthony trial. They had jury selection on Monday and Wednesday. Tuesday was spent going through questionnaires and things like that. And then opening statements began on Thursday, June 4th. And they had testimony Thursday, Friday, and today, Saturday, on June 6th. So that's why this one is a little bit later, because we needed to make sure that the end of the court day was done. Now, for those of you who have not followed the Karmelo Anthony saga, it is happening in Frisco, Texas, in Collin County. It's about an hour drive from me. It's kind of in the DFW surrounding areas. So on April 2nd, 2025, during a district track meet at Kirkendall Stadium in Frisco, Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony, both 17-year-olds at the time, they are both athletes. They actually have really high GPAs, so good students, the both of them. They were leaders at their school. Were involved in a confrontation under a tent in the bleachers. Now, this was Austin Metcalf's school tent, and Karmelo Anthony was sitting under it. His school apparently did not have a tent. It didn't start raining hard until after the altercation had happened. It was like drizzling, barely raining and stuff. And then the rain started getting worse as the police were doing their investigation. But this was just before 10 a.m. on April 2nd. And Anthony stabbed Metcalf during the altercation. Austin Metcalf was taken to the hospital where he died. As we said, they attended different schools and they didn't know each other. I know there's been rumors online that the two knew each other. Some people are like, oh, show text messages. Why and what text messages are there to show that have anything to do with proving that Austin Metcalf was stabbed by Karmelo Anthony? There's no need for text messages to be entered. If there were texts, it would be Karmelo Anthony's talking about the thing afterwards, and they're self-serving for Karmelo Anthony. An April 4th, 2025 police report revealed that Anthony admitted to the stabbing, claiming it was self-defense, which we went over those police reports in a previous video when this case first happened. Witnesses reported that Anthony approached Metcalf and others sitting under the tent after an intense exchange where Metcalf told Anthony to leave and allegedly threatened him. Anthony pulled a knife out of his bag and stabbed Metcalf in the chest before fleeing. He only stabbed him one time, and that was all it took. More than 30 students and coaches are listed as witnesses to Austin Metcalf's violent death, according to the Frisco police report. When authorities arrived, Metcalf was unresponsive and CPR was being performed by athletic trainers. So that is the summary of what happened in this case. So we get to day 1 of opening statements. Or actually, no, let's go over this. Anthony was charged with the murder and released on bond. When Anthony was initially taken into custody and charged with murder, his bond was at $1 million. And then a judge later reduced Karmelo's bond from $1 million to $250,000 following a hearing that was on April 14th, 2025. Karmelo was ordered to remain under house arrest at his parents' home and wear an ankle monitor if released on bond. Defense attorneys argued Anthony had no criminal history and posed a low flight risk, while prosecutors sought to keep the original bond amount in place. He got to be on house arrest, which he did fine on bond. He stayed out of himself. He stayed out of the spotlight. He wasn't making any statements. He wasn't like making TikTok videos and doing all that stuff to make his life worse. Now, there are supporters from certain movements that has made this case into something it's not. There's been rumors spread. His parents have spoken out. And let's see. And, Karmelo Anthony's supporters raised over $600,000 in support of Karmelo Anthony and his claim to self-defense. On June 24, 2025, Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis announced that a grand jury indicted Anthony for murder, a first-degree felony with possible sentence of 5 to 99 years or life in prison. And then 2 weeks after the indictment, Collin County District Judge John Roach scheduled Anthony's murder trial to begin June 1st, and it started that day. Surprisingly, this one started on time. There are strict rules in the courtroom with dress codes. There's no live streaming, there's no audio, video recording, or cell phones in the courtroom. They're prohibited from disrupting proceedings. Protests are restricted to designated areas outside the courthouse, so they're like a football field away. And the people that are going in, there's only 26 spots for the public. You're supposedly not supposed to be lining up until 6 a.m. But from reports, there's been a mad dash because there's very limited spots to get in. And, the rules will be enforced and, you have to go through security screening. And many people have been kicked out of the courtroom. And thus far, those people have all been on one side, based on reports. And of course, there has been tension rising in this case. Families of Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony said they were facing unrelenting harassment. They put their safety and safety of their neighbors at risk. Police have responded to multiple prank 911 swatting calls at the Metcalf's home. Austin Metcalf's father said the repeated incidents have created fear that someone could be seriously injured. Yes, swatting is no joke and can get somebody killed, which to me seems like their purpose. Both families say that personal information has been shared publicly online, leading to continued harassment in the workplace. Um, and both fathers, they needed to take leave from their jobs. Now, a flyer was advertised in a protest in Frisco that was widely circulated on social media, which this guy is on Metcalf's side, but he is making everybody on Metcalf's side look like a joke. But he seems to be one of the only ones, and the people that like support him, back him, that is acting like that. And the flyer used a picture of Metcalf with a banner reading "Protect the White Americans." No. And I said in a live earlier this week that I don't like that because a jury doesn't need to get a hold of that. Um, that is not productive and it can cause a mistrial. Just like if Karmelo Anthony's side was doing that. No, act right, people. This has been turned into a black and white thing, and it's not. It's just not. I know that Carmelo Anthony's side is mad because there are no African Americans on this jury, but it is not an all-white jury. So that is a false narrative, people saying that particular part. Mhm. All right. So now let's get into the opening statements. Hello, Mr. Coop. Hello, Jupiter Jane. Hello, Jen. Hello, Belly Mayday. All right, now we're going to share this. And if people want to go and see if they want to go and see people that are racist, go to Norfolk County, Massachusetts, where Procter and Good are out there speaking. Go there, where there's that nonsense happening up there. Don't bring that to this. It's just not how it is. Yes, Frisco's a nice area. It really is. Take your crap elsewhere. Also, do not forget to hit the like button, comment if you're on Replay Crew, subscribe and turn those notification bells on, and share this out if you so choose. All right. So the prosecution calls murder senseless, says case has nothing to do with race in opening statements. And that needs to be said. That is why also I wish this was live streamed, because when there's division like this happening, the facts and the truth need to be out there. That way there can't be this false narrative being pushed. And that's why we need more transparency in these court cases. I don't show the minors, don't We don't have to hear the names, don't show the jurors. There's ways to do it. But for some reason, DFW area does it's very hard to get court documents in DFW area. It is they there's no live streaming anything anywhere in DFW anymore since COVID has ended and people were able to go back in courtrooms. Now, do they still do Zoom calls and stuff? Yeah. They don't share them. And it sucks as being from here because it was really nice to see what judges were doing so that you knew what judges and people that you wanted to vote and be in office and maybe who you didn't want. There needs to be more light. And what I don't understand is the DFW doesn't do it, but like the Houston area, they do it. Same state. So I don't know how to make DFW more transparent in the legal system, but I wish they would do it. Collin County Judge John Roach Jr. is presiding over the case, and during his introduction, announced that both the defense and the prosecution would have 20 minutes for opening statements. So very short, which is not usually what we see in cases. We usually see a lot longer than 20-minute opening statements. Says the jury was made up of 11 women and 7 men because they have 12 plus 6 alternates. It was seated as Anthony's parents and Metcalf's parents sat on opposite sides of the courtroom. Anthony had, if you've seen his mugshot photo, which let's just pull that up for just a second because I want to address something earlier that I saw too. Like, my whole stupidity is a choice. It rings true in Laura Owens' case, but it rings true in so many other cases. Look at 2 different ones. Let me bring this down. So somebody said that Karmelo Anthony had bruises in his mugshot photo. I saw somebody say that earlier. Where? He didn't have bruises from anybody beating him. They it's just not accurate. I don't see it. If you could point them out to me, that would be great. But that's a lie if anybody's saying that. Anyways. Back to this. All right. But you've seen his hair in the mugshot photo. His hair is now like basically just cut down quite a bit. The prosecution opened first with the Collin County first assistant district attorney, Bill Werskey, who wasted no time and dived right into the tragedy. He told the jury that Anthony plunged a knife and buried it into the heart of another young man, causing his death, and then ran away. Whiskey said the case has nothing to do with race or anything to do with Anthony's claims that he was acting in self defense. He called the killing of Metcalf unjustified and senseless. The prosecutor said the video will tell the story of Metcalf's killing and told the jury they'll hear from numerous witnesses who were there. And then this is apparently a sketch, opening statements. And you can see here in the middle between his two attorneys, his hair is cut down really short now. Any photos that you see that seem to look like they are actual people, they're like, oh, this is the witness of the holding the football. This is the picture. Like, this is what the jury looks like. All those photos are AI created. There's sketch artists in there. There is no photographs. So if you see anything that looks like it's an actual photograph of something, it's fake. Defense gets up an opening statement and says, lead defense attorney Mike Howard began by stating there was a lot of noise around the case that was taken away from the person that Anthony is: a son, a brother, the oldest of four, a friend, and an A student. I don't know that anybody is saying that Karmelo Anthony is not those things. I'm sure he is. Howard described Anthony's success as a student athlete, all while being diagnosed with epilepsy. Well, that's great that he succeeds. And that it seems like his medicine for epilepsy is working. That's great for him. Like, all in all, to me, Karmelo Anthony came off with as a good kid for the most part. I think, in my opinion, he just was acting hard, which you see a lot of these teens doing. They're trying to act like they're grown, which by them acting grown shows they're not grown, because that's just not what grown folks do. And he's trying to be hard. Carmelo Anthony is not a hard kid. He just doesn't come off that way, and he is trying to act like something he's not for whatever reason, whether it is for his friends to act like he's tough, for for TikTok, Instagram, like trying to be cool. I don't know. These kids do dumb things. I think he made a stupid decision that day. I think he needs to pay the consequences for that decision. And I'm hoping, to me, if and when he's convicted, I personally don't think he should be in there for life. I've seen some people say he needs the death penalty. I don't agree with that. I think he's young. I think he did something stupid. And I think he needs to grow up and realize you need to stop trying to be somebody you're not. He made a mistake. And something that I see in him is that he can come back from that. Yeah, is he always going to have this? And is he always going to have killed somebody? Yes. But you compare his behavior and how he has behaved throughout this thing, and then you look at like Mackenzie Shirilla. I see that this boy can probably do what he's supposed to do if he keeps his nose down and clean. and works hard on himself, I think I think he can do things. I think there is rehabilitation for him. Where I do not see much rehabilitation with Mackenzie Shirilla, another stupid kid doing dumb shit for whatever reason, being immature. But she doesn't seem to have remorse. I think Carmelo Anthony doesn't like that he did this. I think Carmelo Anthony realizes that this was stupid. And I haven't seen Carmelo Anthony acting foolish like all these other people, which is good. Whether that's because his parents have made sure he's not on social media or doing things. Because it seems like, I don't know if it's his biological mom or dad, or his mom and dad, or if it's like a stepdad or something. But he comes from a two-parent household from what it seems like. Austin Metcalf came from the same. But then Mike Howard, the defense attorney, shared how Anthony ended up in the section where he allegedly got into the altercation. Howard said Anthony walked around to get out of the rain and recognized someone near the memorial tent, which Memorial High School was Austin Metcalf's high school. Centennial was Carmelo Anthony's trial, which is funny because where I live, one of our high school is also called Centennial. Where he entered, and because he recognized somebody in the tent, and he entered and was told by Metcalf to leave. He said that Anthony, who was 5'8" and about 130 pounds, was confronted by both Austin and Hunter Metcalf, who are 6'1" and 215 pounds. Which, okay. The thing is oh, he's gonna be so scared, Hetty, when he goes inside. And I hope he stays out of trouble. I hope he doesn't get into any of that type of stuff. Man, and you know what? I have found a channel recently. His name is Ian Black, and he does interviews with, people that were inmates, people that worked in the prison, people that are in law enforcement and different things like that. It's a very interesting channel, especially for me because I used to work at a prison. And it would be a prison that Carmelo Anthony probably would have ended up in, is a prison like the one I worked at. But he says size discrepancy. He says that it was Austin and Hunter. Witnesses have said Hunter was not involved in this at all. Howard said that the jurors will hear two different accounts of how the confrontation happened, but wanted to make it clear Metcalf made the first physical contact in spite of the warning to not touch Anthony. He said Anthony made a split-second decision out of fear. Not if he's just has his hand in the bag, just waiting to see if he wants to do something or needs to do something. That wasn't a split-second decision. And just because somebody lightly shoves you or pushes you doesn't give you the right to stab somebody. Being pushed or somebody placing their hand on your shoulder whether you fall back a little bit or not, is not imminent fear. You are not worried that you are going to die then and there. Nobody's saying that Karmelo Anthony couldn't have defended himself. He can't do it with a knife in this circumstance. Could he have pushed Austin Metcalf back? Yeah, that would have been a smarter choice. But he is not in fear for his life, in my opinion. So then the first witness that is called by the prosecution is a Tarrant County video expert as first witness as jurors watch video of stabbing. So somebody from my county, because I live in Tarrant County. Tarrant County is big, a lot like Dallas County. But following the opening statements, they called the first witness. His name was Mark Porter, a video analyst for Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. He shared about his background and knowledge of video enhancement. You know, they always have the training and background, and talked about including the surveillance video that captured the stabbing. And the prosecution entered this video into evidence and showed the jurors the first frame, a wide shot of the stadium showing both Austin and Hunter Metcalf walking into the stadium. So this is before anybody got under the tent. Walking into the stadium and Anthony being, oh, wait. Okay, no. And then it showed Anthony being escorted out in handcuffs by the police. Or maybe it was Austin and Hunter after Austin had already been like on the, ambulance gurney or whatever, and Hunter being by his brother's side and Anthony being escorted out. I don't know, but that's what was shown. Jurors then began watching the surveillance video frame by frame leading up to the stabbing. Porter testifies about the analytics of his work. The jurors saw the moment students gather under the yellow tent with the Memorial High logo and a 10 a.m. timestamp. There's some pushing among individuals under the tent, but it is difficult to tell what happened. Then the video shows all those under the tent scatter quickly. The video then shows Anthony running out of the stadium less than a minute after the stabbing. They were painstakingly going over this video, showing the jury only a few seconds of it at a time. So they went through this methodically and very slow with the jury. The video from another camera shows Anthony being chased while running near the edge of the stadium, and he put his hands up in the air before two uniformed police officers handcuffed him, which this is all was in the police report. So, and these are just the stadium cameras, surveillance cameras. Apparently there is no cell phone video from any of the kids that were recorded because everything just so happened so quickly, and they didn't think that this was going to turn into anything. And so if it was going to turn into something, or they thought it was like this big deal and there was maybe going to actually be a fight, those kids would have brought out their cell phones, but there's no video footage from any of these kids. Nobody got any of this on camera. All we have is stadium footage from a long ways away, which is very grainy and not great. And we've seen people say, oh, you could see the raindrops. And no, not one person that's been in there. And I have followed multiple different people that I know for sure have been in that courtroom and watched this video for themselves. And what's funny is all of them are pretty much saying the same things about all the different things. They may have their own spin on certain things, or they may have an extra detail, um, or not an extra, or they don't have one of the details that another one has. But all in all, it's the same stuff. And so when pretty much everybody that's reporting on this case, some of it mainstream media, some of them not mainstream media, I'm going to take that as that is what is going on because I don't have anything else to go off of. And I try not to just check one side or, I try not, I try to look at a bunch of different people's views because I want the whole story. And I know that sometimes people can get it wrong. The reason I'm reading off of this one, who is JD Miles with CBS News in Texas, is because he has a lot of people have written like what the prosecution and stuff did, but JD has put in their defense questions and stuff as well. And I wanted to see because it just looked like the prosecution and maybe the defense wasn't saying a whole bunch. Maybe the defense was just waiting for their case in chief. But then I ran across JD's and it shows me what the defense attorneys were asking and stuff as well, because I want to see what they're asking. What is their viewpoint? Because if they don't put on much of a case, the only defense that they have for the most part is these cross-examinations of these witnesses. So the cross-examinations are important for Karmelo Anthony's side. And I want to look at him because I want to be fair. So, opening statements in that video expert with the state took all morning. So after the lunch break, the court resumed on Thursday with the prosecution apparently continuing to show the jury the unaltered and enhanced videos of the moments leading up to the stabbing. The magnified videos, which have never been viewed by the public, still do not produce a clear visual of what happened under the tent in the bleachers of the stadium where Metcalf was fatally stabbed. So you say, well, if the video doesn't show a clear visual, how can you possibly convict Karmelo Anthony of murdering Austin Metcalf? How do we even know that Karmelo Anthony is the right person? Because he admitted to it, first of all. Then there are other witnesses. And then you see Karmelo Anthony is the one that's running from the police. That's how. So then after that, they passed it to the defense. Defense attorney Toby Shook commented on how unclear the video of the incident was, asking, "You really can't tell what people are doing under the tent, can you?" Concerning whether you can tell what the lead up to the stabbing. The witness said, "No, sir." He said, "There's really no way to determine when an argument starts or stops, can you?" "No, sir." "You wouldn't be able to tell the jury there's an argument." And the video analyst said, "No, sir." So defense was just like, "This video doesn't show us fully anything, does it?" He's like, "No, not really. I mean, it just kind of shows when people were there and when people scattered, kind of gives us a a time frame with timestamps and things like that. You can see where people were standing. And the thing is does the video and what it has on it generally, does it support what was put in the police reports? Does it support what witnesses are going to be saying? This is just one piece of evidence, but you have to attack every piece of evidence. And so, great. They did their job there. So then we have a witness called Robert Starr, who is a head track coach at Memorial High School and is also position coach for the football team at Memorial and knew both Austin and Hunter and their parents. Starr said tents at a track meet are a big deal, and they're a multi-billion-dollar industry, which they are, especially here in Texas. We need those to keep the sun off of us, to keep rain off of us, because we're playing in the rain. Unless there's lightning, you're playing. Help keep everybody separated, adding that a coach usually hangs out by the tent for proximity control. The coach also said that weapons are not allowed in any shape, form, or fashion on school grounds. Whether the blade was 5.5 inches, which would have been illegal, or 3 inches, you're not permitted to have any weapons whatsoever on school grounds. The coach also said that weapons Starr said that the students have a signed code of conduct, which includes they will not bring weapons. So when you join the track team or you join athletics or football and all that, you sign a paper that says you understand these rules and that weapons are not tolerated. He said you wouldn't expect that at a Frisco ISD track meet. Nope, I wouldn't have. Let's see here. Memorial head track coach was the host for this particular track meet on April 2nd. And he added that the team would be down certain coaches because of responsibilities that come with being the host school. Due to that, he enlisted some of the throwers who are typically the leaders, including Austin and Hunter Metcalf, to help, saying throwers are usually in charge of setting up tents. Starr sent a text to Austin Metcalf that day that he needed to step up and help. Yeah, be a leader. Make sure everything's going right. I've heard some people say it wasn't Austin Metcalf's job. Maybe it wasn't. But these kids are in high school. And they're like, dude, you don't belong here. Like, you're not supposed to be under this tent. You need to go back to where your school is. Like come on. Starr said that heading into the district meet, he was a little upset with Austin because at a previous meet, Austin threw and then left early to go fishing. He actually kicked Austin Metcalf off the team, but they talked and let him back on. So Austin was like, I'm just going to do my shit and then I'm going to leave and go fishing. Because what else are you going to do? Yes, lots of ponds and lakes. And so the previous week, Austin didn't stay. He didn't stay to help. He possibly didn't let anybody know that he was going to be leaving. Maybe there was something else. And he was like, Austin, if you're going to act this way, you're not going to be on this team. And then, Austin and them came to some agreement and he was allowed back on. Austin was just kind of being selfish and about himself, which a lot of teenagers are. The coach said there was never a rain delay, and the Memorial athletes were mostly under the tent though some other schools' athletes went back to their buses. Starr had to leave to get a crock pot from a coach who was waiting in concessions for him around 10 a.m. He heard a commotion, so he started hustling to see what happened, dropping the crock pot and starting to jog. Starr said he jumped a fence and tried to get back to the tent. The coach testified he found Metcalf with a hole in his chest. I'm thinking, man, there are no coaches by my tent, Starr on the witness said. I come over there and my memory is kind of shaky, but what I do see is Austin on the ground. His face is purple and he has a hole in his chest. Holding back tears, Starr said everyone was screaming his name. He said, Hunter said, Coach, do something. Now, that could have been objected to because that is hearsay. Because you can't say what other people said. Don't know if that was objected to or not because they didn't put the objections. Coach testified that he was told Karmelo Anthony did it. He hopped over the gate and approached Anthony and stopped him. It's surreal and it was violent. He said it wasn't violent. Okay, I think that's a typo. He said he put his hands on me and he was hysterical. Somebody just putting hands on you doesn't give you the right. Okay? We also need to teach these kids that they do not need to act with violence. Use your words. Like so many people just want to get into a fight or start punching people. But these kids, you're supposed to keep your hands, feet, and other objects to yourself. It's just not the way that things should be done. Starr says that the coach, got upset, walked and threw his hat on the ground. He then went over to Austin Metcalf and put his hand on his leg as the coaches were praying. He then went to Hunter Metcalf, who was hysterical, and prayed with him, adding that at that point it rained hard for a minute and he knew Austin was gone. That is when it started raining really hard. It wasn't raining too hard before. Austin Metcalf's dad was wiping away tears, and then the witness was passed. Let's see. Then the athletic trainer took the stand from Memorial High School. She spent a lot of time with the athletes. She said she knew Austin Hunter. She referred to the tents at track meets as locker rooms. Basically, that's where you're going to keep your stuff. So maybe you don't want people that you don't know in your tent because what if they go through your stuff? What if they take some of your stuff? Not saying that Karmelo would have done those things. He might not have done any of that. Maybe he was there to do that. Who knows? But you needed to stay with your group. Stressing the importance of staying at your tent, said it's normal to say hello to someone in another tent, but not to plant yourself there. So you can be like, hey, from another thing, say something to them, just be like, what's up? Hi, but you don't need to park yourself there because that's not where you're supposed to be. She said that when screaming started around 10 a.m., she moved onto the track looking to see what was going on. She asked a student what was going on, and the student indicated that Anthony stabbed Metcalf and tossed a knife. Anthony had a brief interaction, then went to Metcalf, although at the time she didn't know it was him. The student trainer thought he was having a seizure. So this trainer was familiar with the seizures. She went to his head and, she thought Austin was having a seizure. Said she went to his head and helped him with evaluating him, and a coach said he could feel a pulse. She noticed that Metcalf was blue. She started rescue breaths, and another coach did chest compressions until the AED arrived. However, that didn't help. They continued CPR until paramedics arrived. I mean, kind of autopilot. They stopped treatment when paramedics arrived. The prosecution passed the witness. During questioning by the defense, Whitaker said that when she saw Anthony, he was running and people were chasing him. So they were trying to get him to stop. Then there's a coach is Vincent Hooper, and he's a head football coach at Heritage High School. So this is not Austin or Carmelo's school. This coach is from another school that was also at the track meet, because you have different schools, that local schools that you go against at all these different track meets. So this is somebody who isn't from either one. And he was the head track coach up until this year. So Hooper was asked about the tents, and he said it's not unusual for students to walk to other tents and say hi. He saw kids scattering and was told there had been a stabbing. He said Memorial High School athletic trainer Tiffany Whiteacre handed Anthony to him and said, "Don't let him leave." Hooper said that he put his arm around Anthony's shoulder. They walked around the track, and he asked Anthony what he did. He said, "He put his hands on me. I stabbed him." With tears, Coach Hooper said that he told Anthony that if Metcalf died, it would change the rest of his life. Carmelo cried, and he had confronted him, and Anthony's emotions seemed genuine, and he handcuffed him or handed him off to Centennial High School coach. The defense also questioned this coach, who again said he felt Anthony's emotions were genuine, saying that Anthony didn't try to run from him. So he did like run and blend in with like the crowd and stuff like that, but he wasn't trying to like get away once he was told that he needed to stay with this person, you know. He said, "I don't think he thought he stabbed him in the spot he stabbed him in. Nope, he just stabbed him." And I I think Carmelo can't believe that he did this. I do think that Carmelo's tears and fear of what's happening next, or is that person going to die? You know, what did I just do? I think all that is genuine. You can, to me, in his mugshot photos, um, it looks like his nose is maybe a little bit like wet, or he has snot maybe a little bit, and that he had been crying. But I don't see bruises. It's a policy, and I think okay, I am banning that user and deleting their comment, because absolutely not. We're not going to use offensive words in this. I I don't want to see that. That word is not allowed to be used in my chat. Um, Sorry, guys. Somebody came in here and was acting a fool. Okay. That person is gone. Now, the next witness the prosecution called was Joshua Rebman, the Liberty defensive coordinator, to the stand. Rebman was at the meet and said all of a sudden there was just panic and scatter. He said he saw Austin Metcalf, got him on the ground, put pressure on the wound, and asked a coach to call 911. At the time, it was a pretty good sized wound in his abdomen, said that I was trying to push his brother to the side. He testified that it felt like 10 minutes had gone by before the paramedics had arrived, and he knew Metcalf was gone. He talked to the detectives and went back to the high school to talk with other coaches, adding that he couldn't believe what happened. The prosecution then played the 911 calls. There were multiple 911 calls that happened. By many different people. And so that was day 1. That was June 4th, 2026. That was Thursday. All right. All right. Then we get into day 2 of testimony, June 5th, 2026. The prosecution calls its first witness for the day, who was a firefighter with the Frisco Fire Department. Hey, Rob. How are you doing? Get a drink real quick. Okay. So, here we go. Neil Adams said his crew responded to Kirkendall Stadium after being notified of the stabbing. He shared graphic details of finding the victim, Metcalf, as the prosecution showed photos of the scene. Adams said Metcalf's pupils were fixed, dilated. He was gray, no respirations. He did not have a pulse. Metcalf's dad put his head down in his lap as Metcalf's mother wiped away tears. So Frisco's a nice neighborhood, Rob, right? Like, that's why I wanted to, like, go to this trial because it's not far from me. And so but I knew, like, today I could have gone, but I knew that court being Saturday, which some places do courts on Saturday. Sometimes if they're trying to get a trial done within a certain amount of time, they'll do it. Sometimes they don't. But I knew that more people were gonna be off work today and able to be there, whether it was just people protesting outside or more people dashing to try to be in the courtroom with only 27 spots. Today was not the day I was gonna go. I'm still trying to figure out if there's another day to go, but with only 27, it's just really hard. And I really have to think about what's best for me and keeping myself safe. All right. And then the next witness caught by the prosecution was Officer Eduardo Cortez, a school resource officer, so an SRO, and reportedly the first officer to make contact with Anthony. Cortez said he received a call concerning the stabbing as he was working inside the nearby school. When he arrived at the scene, he saw a crowd under the memorial track tent and saw Anthony. I had the suspect raise his hands in the air. I gave him instructions. I patted him down for any weapons. I advised that I had the alleged suspect detained in handcuffs. He then told the jury that Anthony responded, "I am not alleged, I did it," which we know is in the police report. So he admitted to it. This is why we know it was Karmelo Anthony, even though the video was not clear. This was not a whodunit. The prosecution then asked Cortez if Anthony said anything else. He said, when we placed him in the squad card, he asked if he would be okay. He was asking if Anthony had any noticeable injuries. There was a little blood on his left middle finger. Prosecutors asked the officer about policy on whether weapons are allowed on school property and say they are prohibited. Yes. Even in Texas, we don't allow children to go to school with weapons. I know, big shocker. Prosecution had a 4-minute body camera video play of when Cortez encountered Anthony, placed him in handcuffs, and sat him down before searching his person. And it's nice that the police reports accurately reflect what is on these videos and the body cam footage. They're not different, which was nice. I'm like, oh, good. Anthony can be heard crying and saying, as the officer walks him to the car, I told him not to put my hands on him. He was then put into the patrol car and gives the officers his name and spelling. Because this Karmelo Anthony spells his with a K. The pro athlete spells his with a C. During cross-examination, the defense asked Cortez, when you go back to the car and open the door, do you remember him crying once you and the officer are in the squad car? He said, did I see tears coming down his face? He says, I can't testify to that because I didn't see his face. He says, my description was based on the tone of his voice. The defense asked questions concerning Anthony's compliance with the officers, and Anthony didn't resist. He wasn't struggling with the officer, and he didn't continue to run. So Karmelo Anthony was acting accordingly. He was doing what he should do. This is one of the reasons, he didn't like spit in the cop's face. He didn't start cussing out the cops or cussing out the coaches. Like, he wasn't doing any of this. He's like, yeah, it was me. I did it. He went, with no incident with the police. He's upset, as he should be. And this is why I think there's hope for this boy, and why I think it's just a stupid thing that he did, and why I think there is rehabilitation for this young man. I don't think that Karmelo Anthony is a bad person in general. I don't think he's evil. I think he was just being stupid. Frisco police officer who found the murder weapon was the second one, and it was Officer Jacob Schultz. He also responded to the scene of the fatal stabbing of Metcalf and found the knife allegedly used in the crime. Approximately 3 to 4 rows up above the crime scene, so up the bleachers. Schultz responded when he found where he found the weapon. Schultz also found Anthony's backpack. He shared that he protected the evidence and covered it up due to the rain. The jury was then shown a photo of the knife, which appears to be a 5-inch folding knife with blood on it as it lay on the ground in the bleachers of the stadium. A photo of Anthony's backpack open was shown. Both items have been entered into evidence by the prosecution. So he is saying 5 inches. I've seen other people's report 3 inches. And that can be your opinion. And I think that of a lot of killers, a lot of people that murder people. But I think there is hope for this young man. Not everybody is a lost cause. I used to think eye for an eye. I'm not protecting this guy. You haven't listened to a word I said. Next, prosecution played the body cam footage showing paramedics using CPR to try and save Metcalf's life. Metcalf is seen in his athletic wearing lying on the ground and unresponsive. In the video, students can be heard wailing. The video played Metcalf's mother and father. They were both broken down in tears. Anthony watched the video intently with the jurors. Metcalf's teammates recount what led up to the stabbing. So after the lunch break on Friday, the prosecution called a track athlete to the stand who witnessed the fatal encounter between his teammates, Austin and Karmelo, and the judge prohibited the media from identifying the witness. They're not allowed to say anything other than he was a student. The witness said that by the time he arrived, Anthony was already under the Memorial High School tent in the bleachers at Kirkendall Stadium, and recounted that he and other Memorial athletes under the tent asked Anthony to leave multiple times. Some people have said that he was asked to leave like 15 times. And Karmelo still didn't leave. I don't know why he was so insistent to stay there. Just to be stubborn? And just to because somebody said don't leave, because he probably would have left if nobody had asked him. He eventually probably would have left. But because somebody asked you, no, I'm not going to leave now. Karmelo deserves jail time for sure. And he deserves a huge sentence for what he did. I'm not saying he doesn't. This is not self-defense. You're not going to catch me saying that this was self-defense. It wasn't. At first, it was not aggressive, he said, but then the tensions escalated. Karmelo refusing to leave, Austin saying, you need to leave. Karmelo saying, touch me and find out. Why? He's provoking him. This is like when people are like, I've seen like toxic girls, like teen girls and stuff do this, or even guys too, where they're like, hit me. You know, you want to hit me. You know, you want to slap me. Like just provoking and just prodding. And so it's like, well, you're kind of asking for it. Which still, to me, don't put your hands on other people. Let's see here. The witness also denied that anyone was ganging up on Anthony and that Anthony was one provoking the situation. And of course, the defense is arguing self-defense. Austin leans in to push him and Karmelo stabs him. The witness said Karmelo had his hands inside the backpack and we thought it was a bluff. Did he say that he was gonna stab somebody? Did people think that what he had in his bag was a knife? That's what I would like to know because, okay, his hand was in the bag. Did he say, "I'll stab you, I have a knife"? Was he just like, you don't know what he's fiddling with in his bag. He's just in his bag, and you say, "Don't put your hands on me," and he's got something in his bag. You don't know what's in you don't know if yeah, okay, he could be bluffing, but you don't know whether it was a knife or whether it was a gun, a brick. I don't know. So, I wanna know if Carmelo mentioned the knife or a weapon, or if he just had his hand in his bag, ready to go after provoking somebody and somebody touching him. He said that he and others didn't believe Anthony would do anything because they live in a safe community. It is a safe community, um, for the most part. I mean, there's good and bad in every town and stuff. This is just not a high area of crime. Let's see. The witness then recounted what happened after the stabbing. He said Austin fell down in the bleachers onto his back and got up. He lifted his shirt where his chest was all bloody, and he said, "I think I got stabbed." The prosecutor then asked about Metcalf's shove of Anthony. He said, "I would say it was a light shove. I wouldn't say it was a light shove or a hard shove. I would just say it was more of an in between. Just like, dude, get out of here. Leave." The witness also said that Metcalf's brother Hunter was not involved. In the defense's opening statement, attorney Mike Howard said that both Metcalfs confronted Anthony and that Anthony made a split second decision out of fear. Yes, the defense attorney is trying to say, no, it was Austin and Hunter. I don't think Hunter came around until later. Like he wasn't there for the full thing. I mean, I could be wrong, but and then you've got other people that are like, well, it wasn't just Austin and Hunter. It was like 4 or 5 people. No, there wasn't. Maybe 4 or 5 people standing under a tent, maybe 10 people standing under a tent, maybe watching this thing, or also saying, "Hey, you should leave. Dude, why don't you just leave? Like, come on." Why is his friend that he dabbed up not saying, "Hey, like, let's just go over to your tent or let's just go somewhere else and we can continue talking." So many different choices could have been made and they weren't. But the defense's scenario right now not playing out very well, which it shouldn't because it's the state's case. The state's case should not have you thinking that the defense is correct. Let's see, cross-examination, of this witness. The defense attorney asked the witness to describe Metcalf and Anthony's movements leading up to the stabbing. The witness said Anthony was seated with his backpack in his lap and his hand inside. Okay, so he was seated and his backpack wasn't over to the side. His backpack was in his lap, and so he just had his, like, hand in it. If this was his backpack, he just has his hand in it, like he's gonna pull something out. Or maybe he's just acting like he's gonna pull something out so that maybe Austin and them will leave him alone, not knowing that he truly actually did have something in it. Metcalf approached Anthony and then pushed him by placing both his hands on Anthony's shoulders. So maybe like this, or pushed him like this. Anthony then pulled out a knife out of his backpack and pushed Metcalf back while stabbing him, which maybe he just went in with both hands. I don't know. And remember, they may not have everything fully down accurate. All of the people seem to say pretty much the same thing. Um, but they're going to see it the way they see it, um, because we're not robots. Um, then a 16-year-old witness who is a wide receiver who also runs hurdles and the 400 in track said that the day felt completely normal before the stabbing. He recalled nothing unusual going on that day and noted that the rain was not bad prior to the stabbing, which it wasn't, because it wasn't until they were investigating, like I said, and that's when they had to start putting up tarps over like the backpack and over the knife and other things so that the rain would not get on that and destroy the evidence. They were trying to preserve the evidence 'cause that's when it started raining really hard. What was first caught his attention was an unfamiliar athlete, later identified as Carmelo Anthony, stepping directly into their team's space. He walked up and stood in our tent. The witness immediately questioned why someone from another school would be there, saying it's kind of weird when other schools come and stand in our under our tent. According to him, Austin Metcalf confronted Carmelo Anthony right away. Austin asked him why he's in the tent, but the situation didn't resolve. Austin asked him multiple times to leave our tent. He then proceeded not to, the teen witness said. He said, state multiple times that he had something in his bag. So Carmelo Anthony did tell them there was something in the bag. That was something I was wondering about, is why would they think he's bluffing? That to me sounds like they were told there was something in his bag. So that makes more sense. That answers that question for me. The witness said Austin Metcalf grew visibly irritated, explaining that Austin seemed frustrated and that Austin just wanted him out of there. Then everything escalated in an instant. Carmelo nudged Austin Metcalf and stabbed him. Chaos followed. Everyone started freaking out. Austin Metcalf was in shock and kept repeating, I got stabbed. Witness also said that Hunter Metcalf was present throughout the entire incident and emphasized that no one saw this coming. Why would you? It's not something that happens every day there. As for Anthony's exit from the tent, the witness described it as strangely calm. He said it was really odd. He said, I think he was just trying to get away. Yeah. Was he trying to get away because he didn't want to get caught? Or was he trying to get away because he was like, oh shit, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't be near this because then maybe they'll know. But he knows people saw him. So, but he did attempt, like, he was going to leave the stadium. So I think he knew he was gonna get caught. Like, there was no way he wasn't gonna get caught with as many witnesses that were around, which is why it's also surprising that this happened, because most people won't do this with witnesses. So many witnesses around. He said he believed the incident was not self-defense and Anthony provoked the stabbing, which you can't provoke somebody in self-defense. Like, you'll never see a DV person um, telling their abuser to hit them when they're trying to defend themselves. You just won't see it. Another witness of Memorial High School, plays football and competes in track, said his mother and sister were at the meet. His sister is on the track team. Yes, because it is guys and girls on the track team. It's not just males on a track team. It's co-ed track teams. His mom worked the concession stand. He said that when he arrived at the tent, he was putting on his shorts and saw Austin Metcalf and Carmelo Anthony. Austin was asking Carmelo, "Who are you?" because no one really knew who he was. He was trying to provoke Austin to touch him. Carmelo Anthony was like, touch me and see what happens." It's kind of like me as a mom. I'm like, do it again. I dare you. Do it again. Find out what happens. I'll tell my kids that. Austin told him, "I'm not going to fight you at a track meet." That's exactly his words. He said Austin just touched him on his shoulder. So some people say it was just a touch. I don't know if it was one or two hands. Some people say it was like just a little shove. Some people it was like a full shove, and then some say he kind of like went backwards a little bit with the force. Still not enough to pull a knife and stab somebody. Not fear of his life. He was not in fear of dying because he got pushed. He said Austin just touched him on the shoulder. He said that then he heard Austin say he stabbed me and saw Karmelo run away. He believes, this particular witness believes, that Anthony provoked him, noting the conversations between Austin and Karmelo were short, like less than 5 minutes, and Metcalf never held on to Anthony or anything like that. Like, he wasn't, like, grabbing his arm or trying to pull him or anything like that. Stuff like this never happens, not at a track meet, not in Frisco. Austin was a team captain in football, and he told me he believed in me. It felt like I lost the one extra person who believed in me and pushed me to be great. So Austin was a team captain of his football team at Memorial. Karmelo, as well, was a team captain at his school of Centennial in Frisco. Both team captains, both played football, both had good grades, both had supportive parents, both captains. Like, their lives were so similar. A recent Frisco Liberty High School graduate, so this is again not Centennial or Memorial, who competed in a track and discussed that her team's tent was about 5.5 feet from Memorial High School's tent, and it had been raining off and on throughout the day. Yes, April's lovely like that. She said she heard commotion coming from the Memorial tent, describing it as more so people wanting a certain person to leave, and that person refusing to go. Karmelo Anthony said, "If you want me to move, you'd have to move me." So Austin Metcalf was like, "Okay, I'll move you." She said Austin Metcalf didn't seem to want to fight. After the stabbing, she said, "I just heard his brother trying to find help for him." Like, and Hunter is his twin brother. Twin brother. A real twin brother. If you know, you know. After the stabbing, she said, "I just heard." Okay. She said she feels some of the news coverage has been unfair and has taken a racial angle, which that has happened. She said she doesn't think the case has anything to do with race and does not think it was self-defense. It doesn't have anything to do with race. It doesn't. Because if the roles were reversed and Carmelo was the one that got stabbed by Austin, I'd still be saying the same shit. There was several student athlete witnesses that continued coming into late Friday afternoon. A 17-year-old athlete and a friend of Austin Metcalf testified that he saw Metcalf and his brother's Hunter warming up on the day of the stabbing. He said he did not previously know Karmelo Anthony. He said he saw Anthony walk up. He dabbed somebody up, which just means like dab. Like, you're just dabbing them up. Like, yo, bro. Like, it's like knuckles, just, hey, like, that's what dabbing up is. I'm really bad at it, but I'm not gonna bring my kids in here to show what it actually looks like. But he said, "I believe it was Eddie. It was nice at first, and things started heating up from there." He said Austin was basically telling him he can't be under the tent. He said he heard Anthony say, "Touch me and see what happens," and Austin stepped towards him. He testified that Anthony had his hand in his backpack, which he found unusual and concerning. Because the reason he found it unusual and concerning and didn't feel like Anthony was bluffing necessarily is because when he's grabbing whatever he's grabbing inside the backpack, this witness says that he could see the vein in Carmelo Anthony's arm. Like it was visible, like he was grabbing something. If you've ever given blood, sometimes they tell you to pump your fist, or hold something, so that they can kind of see these veins or these veins will pop up. Essentially, that was what was happening with Carmelo Anthony's arm and hand when it was in the backpack. He said Anthony told Metcalf not to touch him. Austin went and touched him on the shoulder, kind of moving him, and then Anthony stabbed him. He said, "I was in disbelief. Austin was a bigger guy and he had tried to be nice about it." He said Anthony was not cooperating, not listening, and that Austin did not seem to want to fight. He said Austin used two hands when he touched him. So prosecutors asked whether it seemed aggressive. He said not aggressive, like it wouldn't hurt him. He was just trying to move him. I don't know what pushing would have done. I mean, it wouldn't have been good if he grabbed him and was like, "Let's go," because that would have ended in this the same way. There was nothing else. Well, Austin could have just not put his hands on him, but there was nothing else that would have been lesser than what was done to prevent any of this. Um, and yeah, okay, like Carmelo's not listening to Austin. He doesn't have to. Should he? Yes, because he knows he's not supposed to be there. Still doesn't give him the right to do what he did. She said, it's not self-defense that Carmelo Anthony murdered Austin Metcalf. And that he estimated that roughly 12 girls and a few boys, maybe 2 to 5, were under the tent at the same time. And then that was the end of yesterday, day 2. And so they're going from 9 to 5, it looks like, every day. So long days, of course, in these. All right. Now we get to Saturday. Yes, I agree. Guilty of murder, not hard to figure out. And it's just not, all whites are not against blacks. I don't think that all blacks are against whites either. No, I still think it would have made national, or maybe not national news, but this case, if it was the same race, if they were both boys, if they were both black or they were both white, because it was a stabbing and a teen doing it, it would have been news here in Texas for sure. When I reported on it, it was a local case. I don't when let me see something here. Where am I trying to go? Here I'm trying to go. That's not what I'm trying to do. Let's see. When did I first report on this? How long after? Ah, be quiet. Shut your face. Why is that link not working? That's crazy. Um, Dang, I just wanted to see when I made that video. I've been covering other case so much. So much has happened in the last year. Covered all the Karen Reed stuff. So I reported this on April 9th, 2025. I don't know that it was national news at that point. To me, it was just local news. And so, but I do think that it would all be the same. There's just no reason for it. It's stupid. Like, it's such a waste of time and energy. For what? All right, then we're going to get to today. Okay. So this morning started out with another 17-year-old witness, track athlete from Memorial High School. He said that he's aware that weapons aren't to be brought to a track meet. No, because the tracks are on school grounds. The stadiums, the tracks, they are all a part of school facilities. You're not allowed to do it. Even if he was an adult, he's not supposed to be doing it. He was in the tent on the day of the crime and said that the only people there were his teammates. This witness said he was looking around, looked back, and saw someone he didn't recognize as a teammate. Says, I didn't see any school gear, so it threw me off. So, from my understanding, Karmelo Anthony was supposed to be competing and he was on the track team. I don't know what events he was going to be doing that day or anything, but he hadn't changed into his track uniform yet. And as we heard from previous testimony, there was a person that they had gotten to the stadium and then they just changed into like their uniform there. Like, he just wanted to stay in his normal clothes, maybe until you have to go do it. Maybe he had it on underneath what he was originally wearing. I don't know. But at this point, Karmelo Anthony was not like in identifying school track meet uniform. If you're a guest, you're supposed to be on the other side of the stadium. So this person thought Karmelo Anthony was a guest and not actually anybody that was on any of the track teams because he was just in regular plain clothes. The prosecutor said, did any of your teammates know who he was? Witness says no one knew who he was, which I don't know if that's true. Maybe nobody that he talked to knew, because there was one kid that knew who he was. All right. Let's see. Then the witness said that he was in the tent. Then Austin Metcalf asked Anthony to leave. He says, was your impression of Karmelo Anthony was trying to provoke Austin? Yes. Did Austin respond to being provoked? He put his hand on his shoulder. Did you see the motion? He says, yes. Were you surprised? You don't expect someone to get stabbed at a track meet, the teen told prosecution. That after the stabbing, he went into a state of panic because Austin wasn't moving. And he saw the cut on his chest. He said that he and other teammates ran. Yeah, because that's scary. Like, because is is this guy with the knife, he just stabbed Austin. Is he just gonna leave it at that, or is he gonna start stabbing other people too? Is he gonna start trying to get rid of witnesses? Like, you don't know as a bystander what's happening. So, yeah, they're gonna get the hell out of there for the most part. A lot of that's scary. He said he and the other teammates ran. Where was there a reason was there any reason you saw for Carmelo Anthony to stab Austin Metcalf? And he said, no. Was Carmelo Anthony acting in self defense? Witness said, no, that's lethal force against non lethal force. Exactly. Teen witness was asked about writing a statement during his cross examination. So the defense attorney, Carmelo Anthony's attorney, said, do you remember telling the detective that Hunter popped in and defended Austin? Witness said, yes. Now, what is meant by this kid when he writes that Hunter popped in and defended Austin? That doesn't say that he physically came in there and defended Austin. Is it that Hunter came in there with Austin and was like, dude, he told you to leave? Or was he just like, was he backing up his brother and just like re-saying what he's saying? Like, just because he says he popped in and defended Austin, defending somebody doesn't have to mean you got physical with them. But he said, yes, I remember writing it. He says, do you remember in your written statement saying that Austin put his hands on his shoulder to intimidate? He says, yes, more of a warning. Actions speak louder than words. You know, Austin had already told him to leave a bunch of times. Other people had told him to leave a bunch of times. That doesn't mean when a bunch of people are telling you to leave, does not mean you're being ganged up on. So he thought, well, maybe Austin thought, well, if I push him, maybe then he'll hear me. He didn't hear he didn't hear even better that time either. The defense attorney said bigger build, like was Austin bigger than Carmelo? And the witness said, yeah, more broad. Yeah. And then the witness got off the stand. So he's like, okay, so somebody else was coming in to defend Austin. And the shoulder, touching was to intimidate and saying that Austin was bigger than Carmelo. So the defense got to check off some things there. At the end of the day, do I think it yells that self-defense because the defense got somebody to say no. Still not imminent fear. So then we have another teen witness who was a freshman at the time of the stabbing, was called to the stand by the prosecution, described the scene that day, and shared his account of what led to the stabbing of Metcalf. When asked what Anthony did when he was asked to leave the memorial track tent multiple times, the witness said he doesn't leave. He gets angry and tries to provoke us, saying, make me leave. When asked, was Austin or Carmelo instigating, the witness said, Carmelo. And then the defense gets up and cross-examines and says, when Austin decided to push him out, how did he get to him? He said he walked over to him. He said, was Carmelo still sitting down? The witness said, I think so. Said, did he grab him or push him? Said he pushed him on the shoulder area with both hands. And then the prosecutor asked, what happened next? Austin tries to force him out because we didn't have any other choice. There was other choices, but the witness was then asked by the prosecutor whether the stabbing was self-defense or murder. The witness said murder. Now, I do know that it wasn't today, I don't remember if it was Thursday or Friday that there was a teen that came in and he was allowed to hold a football on the witness stand. And some people are like, "Oh, that shouldn't be allowed." If it is comforting for this kid, because yeah, they're teens, but they're kids, to hold a football, to try to keep his nerves calm, maybe to keep him from breaking down, just to have something to distract him. My son is very similar, where my son actually listens better when his hands are busy. Um, my son usually has a Rubik's Cube in his hand. And then you also see it when, like, young kids, like a little girl, um, has a doll that maybe she's holding on to, while she testifies, that she can maybe play with its hair, just hold on to it, a stuffed animal. I've even seen judges with young kids that the judges will allow them to, the kid to sit on their lap while they testify. I think there's even times where it's been their parent is allowed to hold them, um, to make it comforting so that they can testify, because you want this testimony you want this testimony to come out, but you also don't want there to be some reaction that causes a mistrial, or that the jury sees that and thinks, "Oh, we need more sympathy," or whatever. And if somebody on Carmelo's side wants to get up there and do the same thing, I have no problem with it. It can be a coping mechanism. Maybe that kid is neurodivergent in some way. I don't know. I don't know if I don't think this is, to me, this is not political either. It's it's to me, it's just not. Um, yeah, yep. He should not have had the knife. So was he legally there? Some say he was because it wasn't over a certain thing, but even if he was technically legal because of the blade size, he also but he wasn't supposed to be there because of school policy. Could he have been expelled from school for bringing a knife to school? Yes. Could he have been suspended? Yes. If he just was found with a knife on his person, could he have been arrested if he didn't do anything? No, probably not. They wouldn't have charged him for that. The school would have handled it internally. But he shouldn't have been there with that. He knew he was not supposed to be there with it. Let's see. The third witness from Memorial was called to the stand on Saturday. Described seeing Anthony in the tent and finding it strange since everyone normally stays in their own team's tent. He testified that when asked to leave, Anthony became more aggressive. The prosecutor asked, "What does he say next?" This kid says that Anthony said, "F you all. I'm not going to leave. You're a bunch of something," the witness said. I don't, maybe he called them a bunch of kitty cats. Maybe he called them some perverts. I'm thinking it's kitty cats, which is basically saying that they're just weak. They wouldn't dare. The witness testified that Metcalf took the lead in the situation. Prosecutor, did Austin take the lead? Yes. Carmelo put his hand in the bag and said 5 times, "Touch me and see what happens." Austin said he's not going to touch this guy. He was calm, meaning Austin was calm. Prosecutors then asked, "What did you see during the stabbing?" The witness, You saw a big hole and blood coming from his upper body. He then answered a question calling Anthony the aggressor. Prosecutor said, "What's your opinion?" Witness said, "My opinion is Austin didn't deserve what happened." I agree. All right, now that we have the teen witness that admits to knowing Karmelo Anthony and greeting him at Memorial Tent. So this is the kid that dabbed up with Karmelo Anthony. So this is the fourth witness on the stand for today, or 14 on the stand today. However, this witness had close ties to both Anthony and the Metcalf brothers. The teen, who is also a Frisco Memorial athlete, said he knew Anthony prior to the track meet because of Carmelo's ex-girlfriend and is also a close friend of Austin Metcalf's. The teen testified that he and Anthony shared a high and he dabbed him up when he saw Anthony under the memorial tent. Prosecutor said, "After you stopped talking to him, did you see any other teammates talking to him?" The witness said, "Yeah." Austin said, "Who are you?" So other than this guy like dabbing him up, they said hi, all that, Carmelo is still there, even though he's not talking and saying hello to his friend anymore. Or whether maybe they had just finished talking and that time Austin comes up and is like, "Who are you? Like, why the hell are you under our tent?" The teen went on to describe that Anthony got defensive when he was asked to get out of the tent. Witness Carmelo said, "You'll have to move me." Austin put his hands on his back, which this is interesting. So, okay, so maybe instead of being like this, like face to face like this, maybe like Carmelo was like turned sideways or Austin was behind him and Carmelo just had his head turned and was like talking to Austin. And so it was actually a push like from his shoulders this way, like mm, um because a lot of people said shoulders, but this kid's saying back. So I'm wondering if Carmelo's back was actually turned to Austin in that situation. Let's see. I saw Carmelo's hand go in the backpack. We're at a track meet. Wouldn't expect anything to be in there. Carmelo said, "Touch me. You'll have to move me and find out," trying to provoke him. So this is the kid that was friendly with Carmelo and knew him. The only one that knew him in this tented area. And he is saying the same stuff as all the other students that were there. You would think he would have a little bit more bias, and maybe try to not say anything bad about Carmelo, but also not say anything bad about Austin. Like really, really just try to be neutral n- but he's saying the same stuff for the most part. And that's the thing is you have witness after witness after witness coming in stating generally the same thing. And that builds some credibility. And then we'll see when the defense has their case if somebody comes in as like, "Nah, that's not how it happened." All right. After the lunch break, the defense began cross examination of the same team. So the defense gets up there and is showing photos of him and Anthony together, a 50th birthday party for Anthony's ex girlfriend's mom, a group basketball picture, and a marshmallow roast. Defense says, "You've seen Carmelo a lot more than 2 to 3 times." The witness said it was only when his girlfriend was around. We didn't hang out much alone. Defense said it's not a surprise he came into the tent and dabbed you up. The witness said we were cool with each other. So this witness is like, no. Like, he said hi to me. Like, he probably would have said hi if he saw Karmelo first. Maybe they said hi at the same time. Defense said you knew him. He had been to your house. You didn't think to speak up and say you know him? He said, no, I really wasn't paying attention to him. I was paying attention to the jumpers. So he's like watching the track meet. And defense said, you didn't feel the need to calm the situation down. He said, I didn't think I needed to. The kid was like, I didn't think it was like, it wasn't that heated. Like, people weren't like yelling at each other, you know? He was just like, you need to leave. Get out. And Carmelo was like calmly saying, make me. Like, nobody's like screaming at each other. There wasn't enough attention during this whole ordeal that anybody was like bringing out their phones to do things. Cause you know, those kids are going to bring out their phones and be like, oh, something's about to go down. But it didn't seem like anybody was thinking that. The teen witness said that Austin and Anthony called each other an explicit before the stabbing happened. Defense, when did Karmelo put his hands in his backpack? A witness said it was after the bitch comment. So that was the explicitive. Austin called Karmelo a bitch. Austin said, you don't have anything in there. So Karmelo did not like being called a bitch. The teen said that's when Metcalf shoved Anthony, but said it wasn't hard. After that is when Metcalf fell back. Because he got pushed, and then there was the stabbing, and Austin fell back. Then, now that we've got the teen witnesses done, which you can see what they're doing. You know, they got the surveillance camera the state brings out to set the stage. Then they bring in, you know, police and firefighters. Then they bring in all the teens. Now they're going to bring in the medical examiner. So you can see how the state is lining out their case. Following the testimony of the teens, the prosecution called Collin County medical examiner to the stand. Before proceeding, the prosecutors warned the courtroom that the upcoming details would be very graphic, offering anyone sensitive to the material to leave. The Metcalf's family left the room. The judge then called a break. Now, I don't know if the Metcalf family has actually looked at all these. I don't know if they've actually seen the body themselves. But as parents, not wanting to see your child or remember your child like that, it's completely understandable why Austin Metcalf's parents did not want to see that. The medical examiner explained Metcalf's stab wound, accompanied by a series of graphic photos. CBS News reporter John White says several jurors looked emotional and were putting a hand over their mouths. The medical examiner said the knife penetrated Metcalf's heart and the wound measured 2 inches in gaping length. The prosecution asked the medical examiner, is the wound survivable? And the medical examiner said no, this was not a survivable wound. And then after that, so the medical examiner was their last witness. The state rests its case after 21 witnesses. The defense immediately moved for a directed verdict, arguing that the prosecution had failed to meet their burden of proof. The prosecutor countered that the state had indeed established its case. The judge denied the defense's motion, allowing the trial to proceed, and then ordered a 10-minute recess. Now, I don't know what happened during this 10-minute recess. I've heard people say that um, they expected Hunter Metcalf to testify during the state's case. I don't know what good does it do to put Hunter up there, if they don't need him to prove the case, because there was other witnesses. And putting Hunter up there, one is gonna be emotional because it's his twin brother. He's gonna be very biased. Um, he is also going to be re-traumatized and re-victimized by having to replay this event in his head and talk about it, and then have a defense attorney get up there and grill him and make him act like he should be in that chair instead of Carmelo, because he's no better than his brother, is the way they see it. But and they didn't call him. Well, if the defense wants to call him, the defense can call him, and they can question him. The prosecution, what is Hunter doesn't add anything improving the case. Sometimes is it nice to hear from that type of witness? Yes, but you have to remember he's a kid too. They were shocked that that was the end. They thought that there was way more witnesses that were gonna be happening. They were not prepared for the state to rest. All right. Then so now it's time for the defense's case. Defense attorney Mike Howard called Centennial High School football and track coach Adam Linwood to the stand. Linwood testified that the track is more relaxed, player-driven sport compared with football, and that the athletes from different schools routinely mingle, saying he knew of no policy preventing students from entering other teams' tent areas. Maybe there's not a policy. Maybe it's just an understanding between the kids, like, you just stay. Um, and maybe his school doesn't have that rule, but maybe, um, Memorial High School does have that rule. Different high schools can have different rules. You would think it's a Frisco ISD rule, but I don't know. He's saying he doesn't know about that. It's just laxed and kids can hang out with other kids. Um, there's not a whole lot of adult supervision going on at these track meets. Like, the kids are all over the place. I remember track meets, and they haven't changed from when I was in school in the way things are ran. He confirmed that Mello, which Anthony was widely known as Mello, which is what the defense has said that they were going to call um, Anthony Carmelo or Carmelo Anthony. They were going to call him Mello because that's what he was known as. But he was elected football captain and served as starting defensive back in 2024. Linwood stated that Carmelo's football season ended early due to a significant shoulder injury requiring surgery, and that he wore his arm in a sling afterwards. That was after his shoulder injury in 2024. This incident happened in 2025. So it wasn't like Carmelo Anthony was sitting under the tent with a sling on his arm. I don't know why that was even mentioned, because the sling on the arm and the injury had nothing to do with this. He also confirmed Carmelo participated in track events, including the Lobo Invitational in March, and that on April 2nd, the team's tent was not on the morning bus, even though Carmelo needed to arrive early for his events. So it wasn't that Centennial didn't have a tent. It just was not on the bus that morning. And so it hadn't made it there yet and in time to be set up. Or maybe it was just gonna be not there for that because it didn't make it on the bus, so they just have to make sure they put it on the bus for the next one. I don't know, but that's why there wasn't a tent. It wasn't like they just didn't have one, couldn't afford one. During cross-examination, the prosecutor got up and asked when Linwood last spoke with Carmelo. Linwood said the day of the event. Prosecutor emphasized that weapons are prohibited at track meets and asked whether the coach would approve of athletes stabbing another athlete. Coach Linwood said no. The prosecutor also pressed the athletes should not end up in other teams' tents, and Linwood agreed. So Linwood agrees that other athletes shouldn't be under other people's tent, but there's not like a known like rule against it. But he agrees that yeah, other athletes shouldn't be under other people's tents. It's kind of some knows they shouldn't be, but there's also not a rule. Mm. When shown a knife replica, Linwood said there was no reason for an athlete to have a knife at the track meet. Yeah, no reason Carmelo should have even had a knife or been there with a knife. Because sadly, if you're carrying around a knife and going on school grounds and things like that, if you're not carrying a knife, guess what? You can't do this if something happens like this. It's not even an option for you to react that way. So if Karmelo Anthony would have just been there unarmed, he also wouldn't be in this situation. A new defense witness took the stand, an 18-year-old Frisco Centennial High School graduate who spent 4 years in the football program and 3 running track alongside his fraternal twin brother. So this is a twin that goes not Austin Metcalf's twin, but another twin that goes to went to Karmelo Anthony's school. And the defense said, "Did you know Karmelo Anthony? What did you know him as?" "Yes, we called him Mello." "How would you describe your relationship?" He said, I would say we were friends. We hung out." "How's track different from football games?" "There's way more people and you can walk around." The thing is football games are mainly, I mean, you've got the 2 football teams, but mainly it's adults that fill up the stands, whereas at the track meet, because they are in the middle of school days a lot of times, there are some that are at night too, and so you have parents, but a lot of times it is more kids running around than it is, like, parents, like, during a football team. In football, the players are out on the field, and they're on their opposite sides, whereas the track meet, the athletes are set up in one area, and then on the other side is, like, where the parents and other people can go and spectate, so the teams aren't, like, divided up. They're all kinda put in one area. When it said there's way more okay. A part of track is making friends. Would you agree with that? Did you have friends from other teams? The witness said yes. Did you spend time under other teams' tents? He said yes. Did you see other kids doing the same? Yes, sir. Did you ever have a problem doing what you were told you shouldn't be doing that? He said, no, sir. Would you sometimes sit down and have a conversation? Would you spend more time in the tent? He said, I'd spend some time. Have you ever been in the memorial tent before? He said, yes. Was it to say hi and leave or spend time and hang out? He said, we'd spend time and hang out. Was it just you? Me and Carmelo, we both had friends at memorial. How much time did you spend? About 10 minutes. Were there any problems with that? No. There's no need for a knife at a track meet? No. Oh, the prosecutor says there's no need for a knife at a track meet, right? Witness said no, there's no need for it. The prosecutor says as far as you know, Frisco ISD's policy of not having a knife at a track meet has never been violated. The witness said it hasn't. That we know of. That we know of. Because most people aren't just broadcasting that they have knives or weapons on them. Now, this guy, so this guy is like a year older than everybody. So, well, maybe not. Because some can be 17 when you graduate, some can be 18. And so all of them pretty much were graduating this year. So they were all juniors last year when this happened. I mean, maybe this one is 18, fixing to be 19. So he'd actually just been graduated a year, maybe, and went to school with them for 3 years instead of all 4 years. I don't know. All right. Then, wait a minute. That spent a long time. 4:38. Okay. I guess with the lunch break and the other break, some of the witnesses were pretty long. Goodness gracious. Okay. And then another defense witness comes up, a 17-year-old male student from Frisco Memorial High School, so Karmelo Anthony's high school, took the stand. Defense said it was raining hard enough for people to be under tents. Said yes. Now, some people in Texas are like, okay, it's just a little rain. It's just a little drizzle. Not a big deal. I'll just be out in it. Then some over exaggerators like myself are like, oh my gosh, rain touches me and I'm going to melt. Like I'm going to turn into the witch from the Wizard of Oz if rain touches me. My anti-rain gear. Make sure I always have a hood. So I don't melt. So defense then asked, I want to talk about Mello coming to the tent. It was clear Eddie knew Mello. Witness said yes. From Mello entering the tent and interacting with Eddie, it was clear they knew each other. He said yes. Eddie called Karmelo over to the tent. He said yes, sir. So I guess Eddie saw Karmelo first, and Karmelo was like, hey, Karmelo, what's up? And Karmelo went over there and was, dabbing it up. The interaction between Eddie and Mello was friendly. Yes, sir. After Eddie called him over, Mello sat down. Yes. For about 5 minutes, friendly talk. No one expressed a problem with Mello being there. No. Do you recall the first person to say to Mello, who are you? This witness said it was Hunter Metcalf. Defense says Hunter is a big guy. Witness said you could say. At the time of the event, Austin was a little bit bigger. I'd say substantially bigger. Defense, I believe you told the detective Hunter didn't tolerate being disrespected. Witness said yes. So Hunter tells Mello to leave? Yes. Mello said no one has a problem with me being there beside you? Yes. At some point, Austin and Hunter stand up. They had been seated. He says yes. If you put Mello and Austin next to each other, Mello is smaller? Yes. Hunter started with a moderate tone and got more aggressive. He said, yes, sir. Do you remember telling the detective you need to move before I beat your ass? The witness says, I don't recall saying that. The defense approaches with the papers. The witness agrees that Austin said something like that or something similar about wanting to beat his ass. Defense says Austin is standing up. Mello is seated. He says yes. Defense. That's when Mello reached into his bag after Austin mentioned something about wanting to beat his ass. The witness said yes. Defense. Austin calls his bluff and says, I know you don't have anything in that bag. The witness says yes. That's what he said. For Austin to make his way to Mello, he has to move up 5 rows. He says yes. Austin takes a step or two, and then they talk, and that continues. This witness says yes. Defense, all this time, as Austin is moving closer to Mello, Mello is seated with his hands in the bag, like, don't come closer to me. When it says yes, sir. Mello says, as long as you don't touch me, we're cool, or don't touch me. The witness said, yep, that's what was said. Yeah, yep. Agree. You told the detective Austin reached up and tapped Karmelo on the shoulders. Mello is still seated. The witness says yes. There's a touch, and then there's a grab. He says yes. He, as in Austin, grabbed with both hands. The witness said both of his hands were in motion. So it doesn't sound like there was a grabbing. Just both of his hands were moving. I don't think he grabbed onto his shoulders. Maybe he did just grab onto his shoulders and it wasn't like a full shove, or maybe he kind of grabbed the shoulders a bit and then kind of like if you're cupping it like this, is it really grabbing, and then, pushed him forward while his hands were on him like that. Still not in imminent fear. And Austin is reaching for Mello, and at that point, Mello's hand comes out of the bag. The witness says yes. So Austin is reaching for Mello, and that's when Mello's hand comes out of the bag. And it's like one swift motion. As Austin is going to push to touch him or was going to touch him, that's when Karmelo stabbed him. Some people said the push happened and then it happened. Some seem like it was happening just kind of all at the same time. They were coming at each other exactly at the same time, basically. And Karmelo acted quick. Because it was a short interaction. Some people were like, oh, they were under there for a long time. No. The whole thing, they were all under the tent, and the people and the interaction and all that was about 4 minutes, but the fighting and the stabbing and stuff like that did not last 4 minutes. It was very, very quick. All right. Court pauses for a brief afternoon break. Then we have a teen witness after the break that says Karmelo provoked confrontation. After the break, a 17-year-old from Frisco Memorial returned to the stand and said that he called 911. The prosecutor asked him to demonstrate a stabbing motion, then pressing him on who he believed was in the right. This teen, who was on Karmelo's side, defense called this witness, says, I think Karmelo was in the wrong, the teen said. When asked whether Karmelo provoked the confrontation, he answered yes. Not good for the defense. And then jurors were dismissed and court was adjourned for the day. I'm sure the jurors are like, are you kidding me? This took up my Saturday. Thankfully, they have at least tomorrow to rest. Do not try to contact these people. Don't try to find out who they are. Just, it's nobody's business. They're not to discuss it with anybody anyways. But we just see so much shit happening because of this case. And it's just not how it should be. Um, so that is week 1. Like I said, JD Miller covers from Fox News. Sarah Fields has been covering as well. If you want to see what's going on outside of the courtroom, there's Sippy Cup on Twitter, who's there. There is, who else is on there? There's a girl called Brianna Morello. And then there is a Mary Ann something that has also been covering the case. I cannot think of her name, but she's on Twitter as well. And those are the people that I know for sure are in the courtroom. And then there's just a lot of nonsense going on outside of the courtroom. People being pissed off that they're getting kicked out of the courtroom because they are supposedly reporting to, they're getting caught with their cell phones inside. Or they're calling people and even security and stuff names. They're not acting with any decorum whatsoever. So stay tuned. I will be keeping y'all up to date. We're not going to do like a weekend review. I hope to be doing, because since the state is done, the defense probably doesn't have too much. So this trial probably isn't going to last too much longer. And that pray, once the verdict comes in, that there isn't a riot that has started, because that's something we don't need. Probably something Frisco has never seen before, as a riot, because it's just not how people behave here. Like I said, you want to talk about racial problems, go to Norfolk County, Massachusetts. Go read what Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Good, former Sergeant Good, former Trooper Proctor, what they're doing up there. Go have words with them. Miles King case. Not saying Miles King isn't guilty. Don't know. He just got in trouble again while out on bail. But go see what police are doing in that case. This is not that case. Also, this case is not Daniel Penny. Yes, I get it. Daniel Penny was white. Daniel Penny was saving, someone else. And this is not, Karmelo is not Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse is not Karmelo Anthony. Different circumstances. And if these people watched the cases and learned about these cases, instead of just saying, oh, look at all these white people that got off from killing somebody, and that Karmelo won't get off because he's black, then we know it's because only whites get off. No. Go check out the Edward Faust trial. Go look at all of that. This is not that. It will never be and has never been. And we don't need that nonsense. The tragedy and trauma alone of it being young kids and at school for young kids to see. Some people will never get that image out of their head, even when they grow up. Kids are not supposed to see somebody get stabbed to death. See someone die right in front of their face from violence. That is not stuff that's supposed to be happening. Our kids should not be subjected to that stuff, and our kids shouldn't be doing that stuff. It's caused heartache. We don't need other shit coming into this that is not involved. Because guess what? If it was involved, I would be calling it because I call it like it is. So, thank you for coming on here. Thank you, replay crew, anybody else that's watching. This case is about the facts and the evidence, and it doesn't need to be about anything else. Nope. Karmelo Anthony is not innocent. Karmelo Anthony even admits he's not innocent, that he is the one that did this. But we'll wait and see next week what unfolds. I will see you guys later. Bye.